Hey everyone, welcome back to Love Wins. Having some technical difficulties. It does not seem to like it when I record two episodes back to back. So that's the second time in a row that the second episode has glitched and become corrupted and unusable. So let's try this again. In this episode, we are going to transition from building the case that the Old Testament reveals that the two tables of stone that God gave Moses were promises and not commandments, to the objection portion of the series, where some of you are thinking, legitimately so, these are all hurdles that I had to go through step by step, unraveling, rechecking, confirming, went on for years, as I had time. So the big one, because it's repeated so often in my church, my particular denomination, Jesus said, "If you love me, keep my commandments." And what does that mean? If they're promises, what was he saying? It's a very good question. First of all, if you don't know any Greek and you just open up a variety of English translations, so King James, New King James, New American Standard, NIV, NLT, whatever translations you have around, if you open them up and compare them, you'll immediately find a difference. And it's a significant difference. And it's based on the verb tense in the Greek. If you love me, keep my commandments. And some say, most actually say, if you love me, you will keep my commandments. It's a huge difference. The first can be interpreted as, if you love me, you'll do what I say. Or, if you love me, you'll prove it by your behavior. Or, if you love me, your life will show it. As if our love for God appears and disappears based on our circumstantial behavior. So did Abraham love God and then not love him when he took Hagar as a second wife? Did Abraham love God and then not love God when he lied and said Sarah was his sister? Did Peter love God and then not love God when he denied that he even knew who he was that night when Jesus was on trial? Is that how God sees us? Prove it. Just prove it. Or the second translation, if you love me, you will. Which says something different. It says love will change something. Out of love will come something. And if you reverse it, Jesus is saying if that something isn't happening, isn't coming out, the issue is not the behavior. The issue is you don't love me. There's a love issue. There's a trust issue. There's a relationship issue. So you can see those two differences in the English right away. The accurate Greek translation is, if you love me, you will. So then, what does keep my commandments mean? And why does the New Testament keep repeating this commandment idea if it's not true? And why does Jesus seem to almost endorse it by saying things like this? Well, first of all, sadly, and it frustrates me to no end that I even have to do this because I've had the privilege of being able to learn some Greek and Hebrew. Most of you haven't. And really, if you dig into the English translations, you'll eventually find the truth. It's there. It's just not as easy to find or to see. So Jesus was asked, what's the greatest law in the commandments? And his answer shows you that it's not a list, because he summarized the whole thing in two commandments that aren't even in the commandments. Love God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind. Love your neighbor as yourself. On these, he said, hang all the law and the prophets. In other words, that's the story of the entire Old Testament. Love God, love your neighbor. And the Bible says we love because God first loved us. So Jesus, when he says, if you love me, you will, what did he mean when he said, keep my commandments? Because in our heads, what we've been doing, at least in my church, what we've been doing is, if you love me, obey my laws. That's what we translate that to. But it's not at all what it says. Let me illustrate it this way. There's a Greek word for giving commands. So when Jesus commanded an evil spirit to come out of a person, that's a Greek word that has nothing to do with the Greek word that Jesus used when he said, if you love me, keep my commandments. In fact, the word translated commandments doesn't have the notion of commandment even in it. The Greek word is en tolas, and I separated it out because it's literally a compound word. En goes on all kinds of Greek words. It means in. So we have words like input, income. Greek does that too. En means in. Tolas means the end, the consummation, the finale. Put them together, it's literally in the end, in the consummation, in the grand finale, in the great summation of all things. The word keep, we've already discovered from the Old Testament. It's still the same meaning in the New Testament, even though it's changed languages. The meaning is the same. It means keep, guard, preserve, hold on to. So Jesus is saying, if you love me, you will hold on to my in the end, to my in the consummation, to my in the grand finale. In other words, I have painted a picture of how things are going to be, and if you love me, you will not let it go. You just won't. So let's back up and review some instances, or at least we're going to look very closely at one instance in the Bible where someone let go of God's in the end. When Abraham was called by God to go to the land of Canaan, he went with the promise that he would have a child and that his family would become big. He didn't have any children, not even one. So God's in the end was that Abraham would become the father of a great nation, and that from his family, all the nations would be blessed. But he didn't even have one child. What that means is Abraham's present reality had no connection to God's in the end, to God's in the grand finale. God had described a scenario to Abraham that was completely out of his realm. It did not exist in his life. It would be like if someone promised to me that I was going to become a professional NHL hockey player. Like, it's no. The kids down the street could outskate me, outshoot me. No. Abraham believed. He went because he believed that God could do that for him. If you love me, you will hold on to my grand finale. In the process of time, as the years passed, Abraham's ability to hold on became less and less. And we find moments where the doubts bubble up. And eventually, 20 some years later, in a moment of discouragement, depression, overwhelmed by his present circumstances, however you want to describe that, Sarah, who has been also living under the mounting pressure, coming to him month after month to say, nope, not this month. The days, the weeks, the months, the years, the decades passing. And she comes to him one day and she says, why don't you take my servant Hagar as a second wife, concubine? Other people do it. It's the thing to do. I'm convinced she was hoping that he would say, no, we're gonna hold on to what God said. But he doesn't. We tend to think of sins, as saying bad words or cheating or lying or stealing. All of those things are not good. But the only sin that will do us in is letting go of God's grand finale, of allowing our present reality and what we see and feel and hear and experience to become greater to us than what God has said. If you follow the Israelites from Egypt through the wilderness, every single time, their circumstances got hard. They just let go of what God said. God brought us out here to die. Let's go back to Egypt. We're better off in Egypt. So many times they just let go. But God did not let go of them. God did not let go of them. And we love God because God first loved us. We learn to hold on because Jesus always holds on. We learn to hold on because when we let go, we realize He hasn't let go. We learn to hold on because we discover that He doesn't love us because we're good at holding on. That He's determined to love us until we choose to never let go again. If is a conditional word. If you discover love, my love for you, and it awakens love for me in you, you will hold on to what I've described to you as the grand finale. It's why the book of Revelation describes over and over and over a people who are holding on to the Word of God and the testimony of Jesus. I don't care how things look. I don't care how I'm doing, because God has promised. He's promised. And when I look back, I see that He's done things in my life, in other people's lives, that just shouldn't have happened. But He did them because He said He would. And He's not done doing what He says He will do. It was in the moment that Jesus told Peter that He was going to deny Him, and Peter denied that and said, no, I don't believe your words. I believe my character. I don't believe what you're saying. I believe in my ability. I don't believe your prediction and your prophecy. I believe in my commitment to you. I will never deny you. In fact, I will die for you, Jesus. It was in that painful moment when Jesus opened to Peter what was going to happen that He immediately said, let not your heart be troubled. You believe in God. Believe in me. In my Father's house, Forget Canaan, grapes, land flowing with milk and honey. Forget that peanut stuff. In my Father's house are many rooms. One of them has your name on it. I'm going to prepare a place for you. That's another whole story that we'll get to in another video, what that means. I'm going to come back. I'm going to get you. I'm going to bring you with me so that you can be where I am. Now that's an in the end that I can go for. That's an in the end, in the consummation, in the grand finale that I can get behind. That's a promise I'm holding on to. And if life should hit me with a tsunami and knock that promise out of my grasp, I serve a God who'll pick me up, get me breathing again, put the promise back in my hands, and send me on my way. He's good. He's way better than good. We'll see you next time.